Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Please hit the like, subscribe if you have not, and share because it does really help. We're now on another Brothers Grimm tale, The Four Clever Brothers. There was once a poor man who had 4 sons, and when they were grown up, he said to them, "Dear children, you must go out into the world now, for I have nothing to give you. You must learn a trade and make your own way in the world." So the 4 brothers took their sticks in their hands, bid their father goodbye, and passed out of the town gate. When they had walked some distance, they came to 4 crossroads, which led into different directions. In fact, all 4 led into different districts. Then the eldest one said, "We must part here, but this day, 4 years, we will meet here again, having in the meantime done our best to make our fortunes." Then each one went his way. The eldest met an old man, who asked him where he come from and where he was going to. "I want to learn a trade," he answered. Then the man said, "Come with me, learn to be a thief." "No," answered he, "that is no longer considered an honest trade." And the end of that song would be that I should swing us the clapper in her bell. "Oh," said the man, "you need not be afraid of the gallows. I will only teach you how to take things no one else wants, or knows how to get hold of, and where no one can find you out." So he allowed himself to be persuaded, and under the man's instructions he became such an expert thief that nothing was safe from him. If he wanted and made his mind up to have it, he would have it. The second brother met a man who put the same question to him as to what it is he wanted to do. What was he aspiring to be in this big wide world? "I don't know yet," he answered. "Then come with me, be a stargazer. It is the grandest thing in the world. Nothing is hidden from you." He was pleased with the idea, and became such a clever stargazer that when he had learnt everything and wanted to go away, his master gave him a telescope and said, "With this you can see everything that happens in the sky and on earth, and nothing can remain hidden from you." The third brother was taken in hand by a huntsman, who taught him everything connected with sport. So well, he became a very good first-rate huntsman. On his departure, his master presented him with a gun, and he said, "This gun will never miss. Whatever you aim at, you will hit without fail." The youngest brother also met a man who asked him what he was going to do. "Wouldn't you like to be a tailor?" he asked. "I don't know about that," said the young man. "I don't know much. I'm not sure, sitting cross-legged from morning till night, and everlastingly pulling a needle in and out, and pushing a flat iron." "Dear, dear," said the man, "what are you talking about? If you come to me, you will learn quite a different sort of tailoring. It is a most pleasant and agreeable trade, not to say the most honourable trade." So he allowed himself to be talked over, and went with the man, who taught him his trade thoroughly. On his departure, he gave him a needle and said, "With this needle you will be able to stitch anything together, be it as soft or as hard as an egg, maybe as hard as steel even. and it will become like a whole piece of stuff, with no seam visible. When the 4 years had come, the brothers had agreed, of course, to meet again. They met at the very same crossroads. They embraced one another and hurried home to their father. "Well," said he, quite pleased to see them, as the wind wafted. "You back then again," he says to his sons. They told their father all that had happened to them, and which trade each had mastered. They were sitting in front of the house under a big tree, and their father said, "Now, I'll put you to the test and see what you can do." Then he looked up and said to his second son, "There is a chaffinch nest in the topmost branch of that tree. Tell me how many eggs there are in it." The stargazer took his glass and said, "There are 5. His father said to the eldest, "Bring the eggs down without disturbing the bird sitting on them." The cunning thief climbed up and took the 5 eggs from under the bird so cleverly that it never noticed they were gone, and he gave them to his father. His father took them and put them one on each corner of the table, and one in the centre. He said to the sportsman, "You must shoot the 5 eggs through the middle, all with one shot." The sportsman levelled his gun and divided each egg into half at one shot, as his father so desired. He certainly must have had some of the powder where it shoots all the corners. "Now it is your turn," said the father to the 4th son. "You will sew the eggs together again, the shells and the young birds inside them, and you will do it in such a manner that they will be none the worse for the shot." The tailor produced his needle, and he stitched away as his father ordered. When he had finished, the thief had to climb up the tree again and put the eggs back under the bird without the bird noticing. The bird spread herself over the eggs, and a few days later the fledglings crept out of the shell as well were supposed to be. They had a red line around their throats, where the tailor had sewn them together, however. "Yes," said the old man to his sons, "I can certainly praise your skill. You have learnt something worth knowing, and made the most of your time. I don't know which of you to give the palm to. I only hope that you may have a chance of showing your skill, so that it may be settled." Not long after, a great alarm was raised in the country. The king's only daughter had been carried off by a dragon. The king sorrowed for her day and night, and he proclaimed that whoever brought her back should marry her. The 4 brothers set to one another to go together. "This would be an opportunity for us to prove that we can do it," and they decided to go out all together to deliver the princess. "I shall soon know where she is," said the stargazer, as he looked through his telescope, and then he said, "I see her already. She's a long way from here. She's sitting on a rock in the middle of the sea. The dragon is near, watching her." Then he went to the king and asked for a ship for himself and his brothers to cross the sea in search of the rock. They found the princess still on the rock, but the dragon was asleep, with his head on her lap. The sportsman said, "I dare not shoot. I should kill the beautiful maiden." "Then I will try my luck," said the thief. And he stole her away from beneath the dragon. He did it so gently and skilfully that the monster never discovered it, but went snoring on. Full of joy, they hurried away with her to the ship, and steered for open sea. But the dragon, on waking, had missed the princess, and now come after them through the air, foaming with rage. Just as he was hovering above the ship and about to drop on them, the sportsman took aim with his gun and shot him through his heart. The monster fell down dead, but he was so huge that in falling he dragged the whole ship down with him. They managed to seize a few boards, on which they kept themselves afloat. They were now in great straits, but the tailor, not to be outdone, produced his wonderful needle and put some great stitches into the boards, seated himself on them, and collected all the floating bits of the ships. Then he stitched them all back together, which was very clever of him. It only took him a very short time as well, and the ship was once again seaworthy, and they sailed happily home. The king was overjoyed when he saw his daughter again, and he said to the 4 brothers, "One of you shall marry her, but which one? You must decide among yourselves." The excited discussion then took place among them, for each one made a claim. The stargazer said, "Had I not discovered the princess, all your arts would have been in vain. Therefore she is mine." The thief said, "What would you have been any good, would you, discovering her, if I had not taken her from under the dragon? She's obviously mine." The sportsman said, "You, as well as the princess, would have been destroyed by the monster, if my shot had not hit him. So she is mine." The tailor said, "If I had not sewn the ship together with my skill, you would all have been drowned miserably. Therefore she is mine." The king said, "Each of you has equal right, but as you can't all have her, none of you shall have her. I will give every one of you half a kingdom as a reward." The brothers were quite satisfied with this decision, and they said, "It is better so than that we should quarrel over it." So each of them received half a kingdom, and they lived happily with their father for the rest of their days. The end. That was the 4 clever brothers. And again, there is such a similarity in this story to another one that I've read that was not Brothers Grimm. Very, very similar to Clever Hands and a couple of others. But this ending's also different because they didn't end up with a princess. And remember, the other one poisoned his brothers, I believe. They were poisoning each other. In this one, that's not what happened. Completely different ending, and there is a dragon in this one. There was not a dragon in the other. So that's very interesting indeed. Some of the wording's very old still, and I have done my best. So if you don't understand a couple of things, it's probably just how it's written, or how it's come across as written, I should say. Thank you for listening, and many blessings. Hi guys, so we're continuing the Brothers Grimm stories. This is the Frog Prince. In the olden time, when wishing was some good, there lived a king whose daughters were all beautiful, but the youngest was so lovely that even the sun, that looked on many things, could not but marvel when he shone upon her face. Near the king's palace there was a large dark forest, and in the dark forest, under an old lime tree, was a well. When a day came that was very hot, and the princess used to go into the forest and sit upon the edge of this cool well, and when she was tired of doing nothing, she would play with the golden ball, throwing it up in the air and catching it again, and this was her favourite game. Now on one occasion it happened so that the ball did not fall back into her hand. She stretched up to catch it, but it dropped to the ground and rolled straight into the well. The princess followed it with her eyes, but it disappeared, for the well was very deep, and it was quite impossible to see the bottom. Then she began to cry bitterly, and nothing would comfort her. As she was lamenting in this manner, someone called out to her, "What is the matter, princess? Your lamentations would move the heart of a stone." She looked round towards the spot whence the voice came, and saw a frog stretching its broad, ugly face out of the water. "Oh, it's you, is it, old Splasher? I'm crying for my golden ball, which has fallen into the water." "Be quiet, then, and stop crying," answered the frog. "I know what to do. But what will you give me if I get you back your plaything?" "Whatever you like, my dear old frog," she said. "My clothes, my pearls and diamonds, even my golden crown upon my head." The frog answered, "I care neither for your clothes, your pearls and diamonds, nor even your golden crown. But if you will be fond of me, and let me be your playmate, and sit by you at the table, eat out of your plate, drink out of your cup, and sleep in your little bed, if you will promise to do all this, I will go down and fetch your ball. I will promise anything you ask, anything, if only you will get me back my ball." She thought, "What is the silly old frog chattering about? He lives in a well, croaking with his mates, and he can't be the companion of a human being." As soon as the frog received her promise, he ducked his head under the water, and the frog disappeared. After a little while, back he came, with the ball in his mouth, and threw it on the grass beside her. The princess was full of joy when she saw her pretty ball again, picked it up, and ran off with it. "Wait, wait," cried the frog. "Take me with you. I can't run as fast as you can." But what was the good of his crying, "Croak, croak," as loud as he could? She did not listen to him, but hurried home, and forgot all about the poor frog, and he had to go back to his well. The next day, as she was sitting at dinner with the king and all the courtiers, eating out of her golden plate, something came flopping up the stairs. Flip, flap, flip, flap. When it reached the top, it knocked at the door and cried, "Youngest daughter of the king, you must let me in." She ran to see who it was. When she opened the door and saw the frog, she shut it again very quickly and went back to the table, for she was very much frightened. The king saw that her heart was beating very fast, and he said, "My child, what is the matter? Is there a giant at the door wanting to take you away?" "Oh, no," she said, "it's not a giant, but a hideous frog." "What does the frog want with you?" "Oh, father dear, last night when I was playing by the well in the forest, my golden ball fell in the water, and I cried, and the frog got it for me, and then, because he insisted on it, I promised that he should be my playmate, but I never thought that he would come out of the water. But there he is, and he wants to come in to me." He knocked at the door for the second time and sang, "Youngest daughter of the king, take me up, I sing. Knowest thou not what yesterday thou to me didst say, by the well in the forest dell, youngest daughter of the king, take me up, I sing." Then the king, "What you have promised," he said, "you must perform. Go and open the door for him." So she opened the door, and the frog shuffled in, keeping close to her feet till he reached the chair. Then he cried, "Lift me up beside you." She hesitated. The king, though, ordered her to do so. When the frog was put on the chair, he demanded to be placed upon the table, and then he said, "Push your golden plate nearer, that we might eat together." She did as he asked her, but very unwillingly, as you could easily see this within her face. The frog made a good dinner, but the princess could not swallow a morsel. At last he said, "I have eaten enough, and I am tired. Carry me into your bedroom, and arrange your silken bed, that we may go to sleep." The princess began to cry, for she was afraid of the clammy frog, which she did not dare to touch, and which was now to sleep in a pretty little silken bed. But the king grew very angry, and said, "You must not despise anyone who has helped you in your need." So she seized him up with 2 fingers and carried him upstairs, where she put him in a corner of the room. Obviously then, the princess got herself into a lovely, cosy bed. But the frog crept up to her and said, "I am tired, and I want to go to sleep as well as you. Lift me up, or I will tell your father." She was very angry, picked him up, and threw him with all her might against the wall, saying, "You may rest there as well as you can, you hideous frog." But when he fell to the ground, he was no longer a hideous frog, but a handsome prince with beautiful, friendly eyes. And at her father's wish, he became a beloved companion and husband. He told her that he'd been bewitched by a wicked fairy, and nobody could have released him from the spells but she herself. Next morning, when she rose, a coach drove up drawn by 8 milk-white horses, with white ostrich plumes on their heads, and a golden harness. Behind stood faithful Henry, the prince's body-servant. The faithful fellow had been so distressed when his master was changed into a frog, that it had caused 3 iron bands to be placed around his heart, lest it should break from grief and pain. The coach had come to carry the young pair back into the prince's own kingdom. The faithful Henry helped both of them into the coach and mounted again behind, delighted at his master's deliverance. They had only gone a little way when the prince heard a cracking behind him. As if something were breaking, he turned around and cried, "Henry, the coach is giving way." "No, sir, the coach is safe, I say. A band from my heart as falls in twain. For long I suffered warm pain, while you a frog within a well, enchanted were by witch's spell." Once more he heard the same snapping and cracking, and then again. The prince thought it must be some part of the carriage giving way, but it was only the bands around the faithful Henry's heart. They were snapping because of his great joy at his master's deliverance and happiness. The end. Again, very, very similar to one of the other fairy tales that I've read that was not Brother Grimm. I will say this. I don't know if you noticed at the end, but it said that he was enchanted by a wicked fairy. But then Henry, he said that in the last bit of the song, enchanted by a witch's spell. Now, back then, when this would have been done, witches and fairies were not different from one another. They were the same. So it would not make no difference, really, if you knew that. But reading it now, you would think fairy then witch, and you would think 2 different things. Back then, a fairy was a witch was a fairy. so that's why it states that in two separate forms. Thank you for listening, and many blessings.